As part of National Transport Month, time to focus a little bit on the role played by air traffic controllers. And I can tell you the closest I've ever been to becoming an air traffic controller is to speak to someone who's in the industry now. You can imagine the stress of the job and how you need to be able to make decisions very quickly and very carefully. Tembisa Maphike is the Acting Chief for Air Traffic Services. Tembisa, good afternoon to you and thanks for your time. What do you need to be able to do to be in your game? I imagine you need to be someone who's very calm under pressure.
Good afternoon, Stephen, and thank you for having me on. So, yes, as you have mentioned, the profession requires someone who can remain very calm under pressure, because I'm sure, as you would imagine, that the situations that present themselves on a daily basis require someone who is quick in making decisions and obviously implementing those decisions while considering everything around them, because the main reason our organization or what we do exist, or our profession exists, is to ensure safety of the South African airspace. So from a subject point of view, we recruit matriculants directly from high school, and the requirements are English and mathematics, with geography as an added advantage, because obviously you'd be working with maps and things like that, so that would be an added advantage if you have it. And ATNS offers bursaries for students that we take in. So basically your tuition is paid for when we conduct the training that you need to become an air traffic controller.
And I imagine you have to have quite a logical brain. You need to sort of know if things are going, left or right, that they've got to continue going in that direction.
Definitely, Steve. You have to think logically, because I think in the decision-making process, you need to be someone who's analytical. So we also refer to something that we call situational awareness, that you need to be analytical, you need to be quick in making decisions, but you also need to be aware of your surroundings, because you're working with other people. As much as you can be responsible for a particular sector, but you're working with other people, and obviously there'll be, for example, I don't want to call it multitasking, but also the fact that you have to look at many things and look for other indicators that show you certain things, from working on a radar screen to answering phone calls, coordinating with your colleagues in another sector, etc., etc. So it's a couple of things that one needs to possess to be able to function in that environment.
I imagine discipline and the ability to manage stress as well. I mean, people must come off that shift tired.
Yes, discipline is a very important one, because you can imagine the responsibility that is on your shoulders as an air traffic controller. So definitely responsibility is one of them, also considering that we are a highly regulated environment. So someone who also follows the rules, because every single thing you do as an air traffic controller has a rule associated with it. So you need to have that appetite for continuous learning, but also a memory, because you need to be able to recall all those rules as you conduct your work as an air traffic controller. And then stress management is another one, because yes, you get into the shift and it's stressful. You need to have ways of managing that stress while you are on shift. And obviously, once you come off shift, you also need to have activities that you can do for yourself to be able to work off the pressure that you are facing. So in terms of how we roster our air traffic controllers, they don't work a continuous shift, for example, 6 hours straight. The regulations require us to schedule breaks in between, because you can imagine the concentration span can also not last for 6 hours. So in between there will be breaks where the controller gets a mental break to obviously put off some steam, watch television. There's different activities that they can do in that break that they receive, so that they can work off the pressure. And then obviously when they come back, they are refreshed and their mind is sharp and they can start again.
In a way, for quite a long time, air travel and the entire aviation industry was very male-dominated, and in this country, I imagine, dominated by white people as well. It seems that that's changing. I mean, you're the Acting Chief of Air Traffic Services. I think the people in charge of the Civil Aviation Authority are women as well. Is the industry changing quite quickly now?
There has been a lot of change. So when I first started in the organization, I think at the time, the number of air traffic controllers were less than 10 in the country. So now things have changed quite drastically. The transformation has happened. The numbers have changed quite a bit. And I'm sure, as you mentioned, that even in management in ATNS, the transformation is quite visible. As you mentioned, our regulator The DCA is a woman. Our CEO in ATNS is female. And on the executive team at ATNS, 45% of the members of EXCO are also women. So there's been a lot of changes that have happened over the years, which we are grateful for, because it says that the organization recognizes the value that is brought by diversity in the workforce.
There's a lot changing in the industry. I mean, on one level, this is quite an important year. I think it's sort of a century, really, since we've had, as human beings, organized flights, I presume, in the United States and maybe in Europe, sort of organized flights were beginning to get going. So in other words, people in your business has been going for about a century now. At the same time, our aviation sector is probably going through the roughest time ever after COVID-19, a lack of capacity, fewer planes in the air. Is that affecting your industry?
Definitely, Stephen. It's affected our industry majorly. If you consider that ATNS is, for example, I'll speak specifically to ATNS, that our main revenue is from the flights themselves. So if the airlines have gone down, like Kome in the country, Kulula, your mangoes have gone down, that is basically our revenue having gone down the drains. So the organization has to think creatively on how to make revenue streams outside of the revenue that we make from the airlines and providing a service for the airlines. So the impact as well that COVID has had on us is obviously in trying to cut the costs to the business. The organization has had to embark on a couple of cost-cutting measures, one of them being obviously cutting down on the staffing numbers in the organization, which has an operational impact. Obviously, you can save on the finances, but there's an operational impact which you must try and mitigate while you are trying to keep the business afloat. So there's been a number of challenges that we've faced since COVID, which we are still, I think, continuing to try and mitigate and try and work as best as we can.
Tembisa, thank you very much indeed. Tembisa Maphike is the Acting Chief for Air Traffic Services.